Hi guys, welcome back to EGN Podcast. My name is Vlad. I'm your host of EGN Podcast. So today, as you can see from the title, and we have already done a few of those, we'll discuss with the AI about an interesting topic, which will be, was Joe Biden the best president of the United States? Now, of course, I mean, you might somebody would think maybe that's true, but let's find out together. Especially with the new president coming in, who's already a president, Mr. Trump. But it's a good thing also always to review what was done before, and the last 4 years, right? That was the president in the United States. So we'll see what he do, and does he deserve to be called one of the best presidents, or just a good president, or even a president. So we'll do the discussion with our friend here, Perplexity AI. So it's an application, it's an AI, it has a lot of large language models that we can use to do this debate, but I'm just using the Perplexity through which we use the OpenAI. So I'm gonna, if you didn't see the previous ones, so you can have a look whenever you have time. But this one, so I'm just gonna let him know that what we are going to do, and then we are going to start the discussion. So hang in there, let's start here. Hey there.
Hi there. How can I help you today?
Yeah, so today we are going to do a debate regarding if Joe Biden was the best president or one of the best presidents. You are going to be for it, I'm going to be against it, and you can start with giving me only one argument.
Joe Biden's presidency was marked by significant achievements that could place him among the most impactful U.S. presidents. Domestically, he spearheaded transformative legislation, including the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act and the Inflation Reduction Act, which represented historic investments in infrastructure, clean energy, and climate action. His administration also achieved record job creation, expanded healthcare access through the Affordable Care Act, and reduced prescription drug costs.
But let's just stop there, because you are giving me more than one argument. So you spoke about record, like the Inflation Reduction Act. Can you explain me what that is exactly?
The Inflation Reduction Act, IRA, of 2022 is a landmark U.S. law aimed at reducing inflation, addressing climate change, and improving energy security. It includes $369 billion in investments for clean energy, electric vehicles, and energy efficiency to cut carbon emissions by about 40% by 2030. It also allows Medicare to negotiate prescription drug prices, caps out-of-pocket drug costs for seniors, and extends Affordable Care Act subsidies. Additionally, the IRA imposes a 15% minimum tax on corporations earning over $1 billion annually to fund these initiatives.
Okay, but you say Inflation Reduction Act is to basically reduce the inflation, but from what I see here, actually during his presidency, there was a record-breaking inflation, meaning, and let me finish my point. It says inflation reached its highest level in 4 decades, peaking at 9.1 year over year in June 2022. This marked the steepest price increase since the early 1980s. Over the course of Biden's presidency, cumulative price increase reached approximately 19.4%, translating to an average annual inflation rate around 5.5, which is significantly higher in the historical norm. So how can you explain that?
You're right that inflation under Biden reached its highest level in 4 decades,
And what's the
peaking
point?
at 9.1% year over year in June 2022, with a cumulative price increase of approximately 19.4% during his presidency so far. This was driven by factors like pandemic recovery, supply chain disruptions, and the Russian invasion of Ukraine. While inflation has since declined significantly, averaging 3.4% by late 2023, it remains above the Federal Reserve's 2% target. These inflationary pressures have been a major challenge for Biden's economic policies.
Well, you're right that the inflation surge was mainly driven by the factors of pandemic, right? Because a lot of money was printed. Supply chain disruptions, increased consumer demand fueled by government stimulus measures like $1.9 trillion, okay, $1 trillion, American Rescue Plan, and global events such as Russia's invasion of Ukraine, which spiked, of course, the energy and the food prices. Okay, that part I understand, but there was an excessive spending under Biden's presidency, let's say, let me continue. In the inflationary pressures, ultra economists note that external factors like supply chain bottlenecks and global energy market also played a significant role. Okay, we can understand that part. But again, you are bringing the fact that it came down, but it came down because the Federal Reserve hiked the rates, right?
Yes, the Federal Reserve's aggressive interest rate hikes played a central role in reducing inflation. Between March 2022 and July 2023, the Fed raised rates 11 times, reaching a peak range of 5.25 to 5.50%. These hikes increased borrowing costs, which slowed demand and curbed inflationary pressures. While external factors like easing supply chain issues also helped, the Fed's monetary policy was critical in bringing inflation down from its June 2022 peak of 9.1%.
And would you say that the Fed is independent of the government, meaning it doesn't follow the instructions of the president? So we can say that the president, in this case, and its administration, was having no part in it.
Yes, the Federal Reserve operates independently of the president
Okay,
and the executive branch.
so
While the president appoints the Fed chair and members of the Board
so
of
he cannot
Governors,
take
their
credit
decisions
for
on
it because it's
monetary
not
policy,
his
like setting interest rates, are made
accolades.
autonomously and do not require approval from the president or Congress. This independence ensures that monetary policy is insulated from short-term political pressures, allowing the Fed to focus on long-term economic goals like stable prices and maximum employment. Thus, Biden's administration had no direct control over the Fed's rate hikes.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. And we can also bring the fact that the amount of money that was printed, right? And that had a big contribution to the US national debt because it surged significantly under President Biden administration. And we can also say that, well, the debt has grown, if we check the facts here, by approximately 7.9 trillion and reached 34.7 trillion as of mid 2024, which is basically one of the largest increases in the US history over a comparable time period. What you will say about that?
Under President Biden's administration, the U.S. national debt surged by approximately $7.9 trillion, reaching around $34.7 trillion by mid-2024, marking one of the largest increases in history over a comparable period. This growth was driven by significant federal spending, including pandemic relief measures like
Exactly.
the American Rescue Plan and investments in
But
infrastructure and clean
not
energy
totally.
through landmark legislation such as the Inflation Reduction Act and the CHIPS Act. While external factors like rising interest rates also contributed to debt servicing costs, Biden's policies played a substantial role in this increase.
Well, not only that, but student loans policies, right? The pause on federal student loan payments extended multiple times under Biden, actually, cost taxpayers over 5 billion per month and added an estimated 195 billion to debt by mid 2023. Additionally, Biden's attempt at broader student loan forgiveness were projected to cost hundreds of billion more before being struck down by the Supreme Court. Not only that, but plus interest costs, which we'll get into it.
You are correct that the pause on federal student loan payments, extended multiple times under Biden, cost taxpayers over
This is
$5 billion per month,
brings to another
adding an
subject.
estimated $195 billion to the national debt by mid-2023. Additionally, Biden's broader student loan forgiveness plan, which aimed to cancel up to $400 billion in loans, was struck down by the Supreme Court for exceeding executive authority. These policies have been criticized for their significant financial impact and for disproportionately benefiting higher-income borrowers with larger loan balances.
Yep, and would you say that there was a purpose of trying to close down those student loans or put a pause on it? Like, what would you say was the reason behind that?
The primary purpose of pausing federal student loan payments under Biden's administration was to provide financial relief to borrowers during the economic uncertainty caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. Millions of Americans were struggling with job losses,
Not
reduced
convinced.
income, and increased expenses, and the pause aimed to give them breathing room to manage their finances without the added burden of loan payments. Additionally, Biden sought to address long-standing issues of student debt burdens, particularly for low and middle-income borrowers, as part of his broader goal to make higher education more accessible and equitable.
Okay, as an AI, do you think it is fair to previous students who didn't have this option?
Fairness in student loan policies is a complex issue.
Because it
Critics
is not
argue that
fair.
pausing or forgiving loans benefits those who borrowed for higher education while excluding individuals who either paid off their loans or chose not to
Okay.
take on debt. This can create a sense of inequity among those who did not receive similar relief. On the other hand, supporters contend that addressing student debt helps alleviate financial burdens for millions, especially those in lower income brackets, and can have broader economic benefits by increasing disposable income and reducing financial stress.
But the thing is, if it's forgiven, somebody gotta pay for those things, no? It cannot be just vanished.
You're absolutely correct. Student loan forgiveness doesn't simply erase the
AI
debt,
says that.
it shifts the financial burden elsewhere. The cost of forgiveness would ultimately fall on taxpayers, as the government absorbs the unpaid loans into its budget. This could increase the national debt or require reallocating funds from other programs. Critics often highlight this point, arguing that loan forgiveness redistributes costs to individuals who may not have benefited from higher education, raising questions about fairness and fiscal responsibility.
Well, exactly. It comes out of the pockets of taxpayers, right? So taxpayers are funding that, and basically it's a cycle. But the main argument, and before we go to the next argument, in this case, the main way that can be seen, in my opinion, it's he wants to pardon some loans in order to have the young voters. Am I mistaken?
That is a common critique of student loan forgiveness policies. Critics argue that such initiatives may be
There is a
politically
reason for that.
motivated, aiming to appeal to younger voters who are disproportionately affected by student debt. By offering relief or forgiveness, the administration could potentially galvanize support among this demographic, which is an important voting bloc. While the policy is framed as economic relief, opponents often view it as a strategic move to secure political loyalty rather than
Of
a
course.
purely altruistic economic measure.
Of course. Well, anyways, that's one of the arguments. But at the same time, another argument against President Biden is rising interest rates have drastically increased the cost of servicing the debt. Interest payments grew by 153% during Biden's presidency, reaching nearly 900 billion annually. Of course, we mentioned that it's the federal, the Fed who increased the rates. Sorry.
Yes, rising interest rates have significantly increased the cost of servicing the national debt under President Biden. Annual interest payments grew by 153%, reaching nearly $900 billion, largely due to the Federal Reserve's rate hikes aimed at combating inflation. While the administration does not control Fed policy, its fiscal decisions, such as increased spending on programs like student loan relief and infrastructure, contributed to the growing debt. This dynamic has placed a heavier burden on taxpayers, highlighting concerns about fiscal sustainability and long-term economic risks.
Okay, so before we continue with arguments against, give me something positive that their administration did.
One of the most positive aspects of Biden's administration has been the historic economic recovery following the pandemic. The U.S. achieved record job creation, with over 16 million new jobs added, and unemployment rates reaching historic lows, such as 3.9% by late 2021. Additionally, Biden's policies, including the Inflation Reduction Act and the bipartisan infrastructure law, spurred significant investments in clean energy, infrastructure, and manufacturing, creating a foundation for long-term economic growth and resilience.
Yeah, well, you mentioned about extra jobs that were added. Um, is it possible that, well, let me
Yes, the Biden
let me finish my point, my friend. Is it possible that those jobs were added because of, let's say, the new illegal immigrants that came to the country?
Yes, it is possible that many of the jobs added during Biden's presidency were due to the reopening of the economy after pandemic-related shutdowns, rather than entirely.
Not the reopening of the economy, the increase of illegal immigrants coming from the southern border.
The surge in illegal immigration under Biden's administration has been significant,
Okay,
with over 10.8 million encounters recorded since 2021, including
okay,
more than 8.7 million at the southern border.
okay.
While some undocumented immigrants have entered the labor force, potentially filling job vacancies and easing labor market tightness, this influx has also raised concerns about its impact on wages and employment for low-skilled U.S. workers. The connection between this immigration surge and job
Mm-hmm,
growth is complex, as many migrants take on roles that are difficult to fill domestically, but it also
mm-hmm,
poses challenges
exact.
for economic and social systems.
Okay, but so your answer is that yes, the fact that more people came into the country legally, illegally in this case, helped to grow those numbers up, correct?
Yes, the increase
Okay.
in illegal immigration
So
likely
we cannot
contributed to
give him
job
that
growth
as an
numbers, as many
credit.
undocumented immigrants enter the labor force, often taking jobs in sectors like agriculture, construction, and service industries. This influx can boost overall employment figures, but also
Okay,
complicates the broader economic picture by raising
exactly.
questions about wage impacts, resource allocation, and the strain on public services.
Well, exactly. So, in some ways, we cannot give him credit of increasing the number of people who are working or new jobs because it was done of because of something that was illegal, a problem, a mismanagement of a situation on the southern border, which impacted and created this consequence of adding new jobs. But it doesn't mean that it's because of his good management of the country.
You make a valid point. While job
Okay.
growth under Biden's administration has been significant, attributing it entirely to effective management is complicated by factors like the surge in illegal immigration. The influx of undocumented immigrants has added workers to the labor force, filling job vacancies and easing labor market tightness. But this stems from a broader issue of border mismanagement rather than deliberate economic policy. As such, while these additional workers contribute to employment figures, it doesn't necessarily reflect strong governance or strategic planning by the administration.
Well, it does. It doesn't help, and it's not a point to give to him about that. So let's go to another point, which is very important and very, as of today, um, an important subject. So yeah, we'll talk about foreign policy. Okay, foreign policy missteps, which he did a lot, and a lot of people are actually blaming him. People forgot about this, but 2021 Afghanistan, the withdrawal, like what was that? Can you explain to me? Is it giving him credit? Is it giving making him a good president for that?
The U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan in 2021 was one of the most controversial moments of Biden's presidency.
Correct.
While it ended a 20-year conflict, the execution was widely criticized for its chaotic nature.
Because it wasn't
The rapid collapse of the Afghan government, the Taliban's swift return to power, and the tragic Abbey Gate terrorist attack that killed 13 U.S. service members highlighted significant planning failures. Critics argue that Biden prioritized meeting deadlines over ensuring an orderly evacuation, damaging
this
U.S.
guy.
credibility and leaving allies vulnerable. Supporters, however, contend that withdrawal was necessary to refocus on other global priorities, despite its challenges.
Let's come back a second. The withdrawal, was it planned under President Trump?
The withdrawal from Afghanistan was initially planned under President Trump,
Okay.
who signed a deal with the Taliban on
Okay.
February 29, 2020. This agreement set a May 1, 2021 deadline for the
Perfect.
U.S. to withdraw all troops, contingent on the Taliban meeting certain conditions, such as reducing violence and cutting ties with terrorist groups. When President Biden took office, he reviewed the plan and decided to proceed with the withdrawal, but extended the timeline to August 31, 2021. While Biden inherited the framework from Trump, he ultimately made the decision to execute the withdrawal on his administration's terms.
So let me get this straight. So initially the date was May 1st, 2021. Now then he extended it to August 2021. And then you are saying that he was under pressure of a deadline, so that's why he executed the order, correct?
Yes, that's correct. The original withdrawal
Well,
deadline
he
of May 1st,
himself chose the
2021
deadline,
was
no?
set under Trump's agreement with the Taliban. When Biden took office, he extended the deadline to August 31st, 2021, to allow more time for planning and logistics. However, Biden faced significant pressure to follow through on the withdrawal, as reneging on the agreement risked renewed conflict with the Taliban. While he wasn't bound to Trump's timeline, Biden chose to proceed, citing the need to end America's longest war. Critics argued that despite the extension, the chaotic execution reflected poor planning
Correct.
and mismanagement.
Exactly. Well, that's the thing. He had how many months? He had 3 months extra that he extended himself, right? He extended himself the dates, and they didn't prepare for it. So how can you say that like it's like he was on vacation and he remembered, oh damn, we gotta do something. Hey, everybody, get out. Like, was there any preparation done, and what the generals say about this?
You're correct that President Biden extended the withdrawal deadline to August 31st, 2021,
Okay.
giving his administration additional time to prepare.
To
However,
prepare
despite this
to do
extension,
nothing?
the withdrawal was widely criticized for its lack of adequate planning. Top generals, including General Frank McKenzie and General Mark Milley, testified that they had advised Biden to keep a small contingent of 2,500 troops in Afghanistan to maintain stability and prevent a rapid collapse of the Afghan government. These
Respect.
warnings were not heeded,
Oh,
and the chaotic evacuation highlighted significant failures in coordination between the administration and military leaders. The rushed nature of the operation, despite months of lead time, led to tragic consequences and undermined U.S. credibility globally.
so you are saying that the generals who take care of that, so there are generals of army, they give their opinion, their feedback to the president and its administration, but they didn't take in consideration, didn't prepare, didn't add extra amounts, extra people on the place, so they didn't leave nobody there, and they rushed.
Yes, that's correct. Senior military leaders, including General Frank McKenzie and General Mark Milley, advised President Biden to keep a residual force of 2,500 troops in Afghanistan to prevent the
Okay.
rapid collapse of the Afghan government and ensure a more orderly withdrawal. However, Biden decided to proceed with a full withdrawal,
Why?
prioritizing ending the war. Critics argue that the administration failed to adequately prepare for the consequences, such as the swift Taliban takeover and chaotic evacuation. Despite warnings from military advisors, resources and personnel were not sufficiently allocated to manage the withdrawal effectively.
Have Biden does Biden and his administration have any experience in warfare, in army, in conflicts like that?
No, President Joe Biden does not
Okay.
have personal military experience.
Not
He received 5 student draft deferments during the Vietnam War and was later classified as medically disqualified due to asthma. However,
lol.
he has decades of political experience, particularly in
For
foreign
sure,
policy,
he's a
having
politician.
served as chair of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee and as vice president under Barack Obama. While he has worked closely with military leaders and supported veterans' causes, his decisions on military matters are informed by his political background rather than direct combat or military service experience.
Okay, well, I know that you don't need to have an experience in military to be able to manage and be a chief of president of the United States and all that, but he basically declined the feedback from experienced generals and he proceeded. But the reason, can you explain why he proceeded?
President Biden proceeded with the Afghanistan withdrawal, despite advice from military leaders,
We get
because he
that.
was deeply committed to ending what he viewed as an unwinnable forever war.
That he
He
didn't
believed that
start the
no
process
amount
of
of U.S.
withdrawing, but
military
okay.
presence could create a stable Afghan government, and that staying longer would only prolong inevitable challenges. Biden also felt constrained by the agreement his predecessor, Donald Trump, had made with the Taliban,
Constrained,
which set a withdrawal deadline. He argued that breaking the deal would have
which he pushed
reignited
away.
conflict with the Taliban, risking American lives. Ultimately, Biden prioritized fulfilling his campaign promise to end the war, even at significant political and strategic costs.
So basically, Biden fell under the pressure of potential conflict, restarting with the Taliban, and he said, "Oh no, 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 no! Let's leave right now, go, go, go." Am I correct?
Yes, that's essentially correct. President Biden decided to
Okay,
proceed with the
so he's
withdrawal,
not a
citing the
strong
risk
leader,
of reigniting conflict with the Taliban if the U.S. stayed beyond the agreed deadline. While he extended the original May 1st
but he
deadline to August
extended
31st,
himself,
he emphasized that staying longer would have meant
and he
renewed
didn't
attacks on
prepare.
U.S. troops and further casualties. Critics argue that this decision, combined with inadequate preparation, led to a rushed and chaotic exit. But Biden maintained that ending the war was necessary, even if it came at significant short-term costs.
Short-term costs? Can you tell me those short-term costs?
The short-term costs of the Afghanistan withdrawal were significant and multifaceted. The chaotic evacuation led to the deaths of 13 U.S. service members and over 170 Afghan civilians in a terrorist attack at Kabul airport.
That's crazy.
Thousands of Afghans who had supported U.S. forces were left behind, facing
Crazy.
persecution under Taliban rule. The rapid Taliban takeover exacerbated Afghanistan's humanitarian crisis, with millions experiencing food insecurity, poverty, and restricted rights, particularly for women and girls. Additionally, the withdrawal damaged U.S. credibility internationally, raising concerns about its reliability as an ally.
So what did the US government under Biden win by doing that move? Give me like three arguments, okay? What did they win by doing that?
The Biden administration's decision to withdraw from Afghanistan had several strategic benefits, despite its controversial execution.
Let's hear it.
First, it ended a costly 20-year conflict, freeing up resources and saving approximately $50 billion annually that had been spent on maintaining U.S. operations in Afghanistan.
And they lost about 90 billion.
Second,
We'll come
it
to
allowed
that.
the U.S. to reorient its military and diplomatic focus toward other global priorities, such as countering China and Russia. Third, it reduced dependency on Pakistan for access to Afghanistan, enabling a more balanced U.S. policy toward Pakistan and addressing broader regional concerns.
This question doesn't make any sense, of course, to say, but would you agree that the reasons versus the consequences do not make any sense, and even a 5-year-old can understand that part?
It's fair to say that the consequences of the Afghanistan withdrawal, particularly the loss of lives, the humanitarian crisis, and the damage to U.S. credibility, significantly overshadow the strategic reasons cited by the administration.
Exactly.
While ending the war and reallocating resources were valid objectives, the chaotic execution undermined these goals and led to widespread criticism.
They are not.
Many would agree that the mismatch between the intended benefits and the severe fallout made the decision appear poorly managed, even to those without deep expertise in foreign policy.
Let's be a conspiracy theorist, okay? Just for a second. So, would you say that there is a reason why this was done chaotically, and there is a reason why a lot of weapons of about, I don't know how many millions of dollars, you can tell me, were left at Afghanistan. Let's give theories.
Around $7.12 billion worth of U.S. military equipment was left behind in Afghanistan after the withdrawal,
7.12 billion.
including aircraft, vehicles, weapons, and communication systems. While some of this equipment was demilitarized or rendered inoperable, much of it fell into Taliban hands, raising concerns about regional security and the potential use of these assets by militant groups. Speculating as a conspiracy theorist, one might question whether this chaotic withdrawal and the abandonment of equipment served hidden motives, such as destabilizing the region or influencing geopolitical dynamics.
Okay.
However, there is no evidence to suggest intentionality beyond poor planning and mismanagement.
Well, for sure, there is no evidence, but we can just go by the facts of that he had extra 3 months to prepare. He didn't listen to his generals to not do it right away, to relieve some people. He executed it, and the consequence not only of the chaotic exit, but also of weapons just left there. So one might just think that maybe there was a reason, maybe there wasn't, but the consequences are catastrophic, and it doesn't give any credit to him at all.
The chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan, including leaving behind $712 billion worth of military equipment, has fueled significant criticism and conspiracy theories. While there is no evidence of intentional sabotage or ulterior,
I know that there is no evidence, but would you say that's the top 5 biggest fail of a president of Biden during the last 4 years?
yes, the chaotic
Yes.
withdrawal
Okay.
from Afghanistan in
Fair.
2021 is widely regarded as one of the top failures of Biden's presidency. Despite extending the timeline,
So okay, so basically, yeah. So because of his choices, because of his lack of leadership strength, the guy went to the pressure of being, held accountable for a deadline or having a potential conflict with another country in which they are military present since, I don't know, 20 years, and they have all these weapons and all this control, and they are the main power in the world, some would say, and he went under that pressure and didn't listen to his generals and still ordered the withdrawal. And we have seen those videos of people hanging on airplanes because they're afraid, and they are afraid for their lives. Some people died, some things were blown up, even US citizens and military, like, it was catastrophic. And to forget that part, it's, I would say, minimum unfair. And also it shows why a lot of people went the other way in this election that was done in November 2024. But besides that, what would you say that Biden did for peace in the world during his presidency?
President Biden's foreign policy has had notable successes in fostering peace and global stability. First, his administration played a pivotal role in uniting NATO and rallying international support for Ukraine following Russia's invasion in 2022, providing military and economic aid that helped Ukraine resist aggression. Second, Biden strengthened alliances in the Indo-Pacific to counterbalance China's influence, including the AUKUS Security Pact and enhanced ties with Japan, South Korea, and Australia. Finally, his administration rejoined the Paris Climate Agreement and prioritized global cooperation on climate change and public health, reinforcing multilateralism as a cornerstone of U.S. diplomacy.
Well, first of all, would you say that the escalation that happened even between Russia and Ukraine and with the Middle East would have not happened if Trump was the president? Give me the arguments.
The argument that the escalation between Russia and Ukraine, as well as tensions in the Middle East, might not have happened under Trump is speculative, but worth exploring. First, Trump maintained a transactional and often unpredictable foreign policy, which included a willingness to negotiate directly with adversaries like Russia. His critics argue this emboldened authoritarian leaders, but supporters claim it deterred aggression by keeping them uncertain about U.S. responses. Second,
Okay.
Trump's strong support for Israel and Saudi Arabia created stability in the Middle East through alliances, though it alienated other regional actors like Iran and Palestine. Lastly, Trump's America First approach often deprioritized military commitments abroad, which some believe could have discouraged escalations like Russia's invasion of Ukraine by signaling U.S. disengagement from global conflicts. However, these policies also carried risks of creating power vacuums and undermining alliances.
Okay, but let's just come back to the fact that you said he helped, Ukraine in the Ukraine conflict. So let's just read what's written here. It says Biden's handling of Russia-Ukraine war has drawn mixed reactions. Okay, while he rallied NATO allies and provided 183 billion in aid to Ukraine, critics argued that his administration blocked early negotiations in 2022.
President Biden's handling of the Russia-Ukraine war has indeed drawn mixed reactions. On one hand, he successfully rallied NATO allies and provided
Let's give me an answer, please. So, did Biden's administration blocked early negotiations in 2022 between Russia and Ukraine for peace resolution?
reports suggest that the Biden administration may have influenced or blocked early peace negotiations
Wow.
between Russia and Ukraine in 2022. Investigative journalist Seymour Hersh claimed that U.S. officials pressured Ukrainian President Zelensky to avoid peace talks by threatening to cut off financial aid.
Oh,
Additionally, while Biden emphasized strengthening Ukraine's position for negotiations, critics argue that the administration prioritized military support over diplomacy, prolonging the conflict. These actions have sparked debate over whether U.S. involvement hindered potential resolutions in the war's early stages.
okay. Can you please tell me again? Like this is based on which sources that you are telling me that the Biden administration blocked early negotiations since 2020 in that war?
The claim that the Biden administration blocked early peace negotiations between Russia and Ukraine is based on investigative reports by journalist Seymour Hersh. According to Hersh, U.S. officials allegedly pressured Ukrainian President Zelensky to avoid negotiations by threatening to withdraw $45 billion in non-military aid, as revealed by anonymous sources. Hersh's reporting suggests that potential peace talks in 2022 were undermined by U.S. leadership prioritizing continued military support over diplomacy, though these claims remain unverified and have not been
Hmm.
officially confirmed.
What? Oh, yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't during the Tucker and Putin discussion, Putin also said something like that?
Yes, during the interview with Tucker Carlson in February 2024, Vladimir Putin claimed that Russia was ready to negotiate a peace agreement early in the war, but these efforts were allegedly undermined by Western interference. He specifically mentioned that after initial agreements reached in Istanbul in 2022, Ukrainian negotiators backed out, which he attributed to pressure from Western leaders, including then British Prime Minister Boris Johnson. While Putin did not directly accuse the Biden administration of blocking negotiations in this
Of course
interview,
not.
his remarks implied that Western powers played a role in derailing potential peace talks.
And well, this is of course it's a complicated conflict, and a lot of things are going into it. But what would be logical reasons for the Biden administration potentially, allegedly blocking any negotiations in 2022?
The logical reasons for the Biden administration allegedly blocking early peace negotiations in 2022 could include several strategic considerations. First, the U.S. may have believed that a negotiated settlement at that time would leave Russia in control of significant Ukrainian territory, which could be seen as rewarding aggression and setting a dangerous precedent globally. Second, the
Okay.
administration likely aimed to strengthen Ukraine's position on the battlefield before pursuing diplomacy, as President Biden stated that military aid was intended to ensure Ukraine negotiated from a position of strength. Lastly, prolonging the conflict might align with broader U.S. geopolitical goals, such as weakening Russia's military and economic capacity over the long term. However, these reasons remain speculative and are subject to ongoing debate.
Are there any financial incentives based on these allegedly blocked early negotiations?
The financial incentives for allegedly blocking early negotiations in the Russia-Ukraine conflict could be tied to the massive flow of U.S. aid to Ukraine. Since February 2022,
Okay.
the U.S. has allocated over $183 billion in funding, with a significant portion directed toward military aid and replenishing defense stockpiles. This aid not only supports Ukraine but also benefits U.S. defense contractors and industries producing weapons and equipment, as much of the funding is used to procure
Okay.
arms domestically.
You said it.
Additionally, prolonging the conflict could align with strategic goals of weakening Russia militarily and economically, which might justify continued financial and military commitments.
Okay. And the one would say, this is just for my curiosity, why would they want to weaken Russia? Meaning, did Russia do any approach, meaning attacking other countries before the war, even in before
The
2014?
U.S. and its allies may have strategic reasons for wanting to weaken Russia, rooted in historical and geopolitical considerations. First, Russia's actions, such as the annexation of Crimea in 2014 and its invasion of Ukraine in 2022, have been seen as direct challenges to international norms and Western influence. Weakening Russia militarily and economically could deter future aggression and reinforce the global rules-based order. Second, Russia's pursuit of a multipolar world order and its alliances with nations like China challenge U.S. dominance on the global stage. By targeting Russia's economy through sanctions and military support for Ukraine, the U.S. aims to limit its ability to project power globally. Lastly, undermining Russia's influence in regions like Eastern Europe and the Arctic aligns with NATO's long-term strategy of securing its borders and countering Russian expansionism.
And would you say that the fact that Biden's foreign policy, rhetoric often emphasized democracy, human rights, but he's supporting other countries, attacking other countries, and he wants to prevent civilian harm and all that, but at the same time, he's sending money to countries to have, weapons and attack other countries in the Middle East. So, does it help his credibility?
President Biden's foreign policy emphasizes democracy and human rights, but his administration
Kind of,
has
yeah.
faced criticism for actions that appear contradictory. For example, while promoting democratic
Hypocritical.
values through initiatives like the Summit for Democracy, the U.S. has continued to provide military aid to allies like Israel and Saudi Arabia, whose actions and conflicts have raised concerns about civilian harm and regional instability. Critics argue that this support undermines the administration's stated goals of preventing civilian harm and upholding human rights,
Another idea.
highlighting the tension between strategic interests and moral rhetoric in U.S. foreign policy.
Okay, so we just established that Biden is falling under pressure. Biden is not a good negotiator because all of these conflicts are happening under his watch and he cannot maintain peace in the world. And this is just facts. Correct me if I'm wrong. And we can also establish the fact that maybe there are other reasons, allegedly, that all of those things that we just discussed happened, favoring, some specific entities. But
based on the facts,
we'll
it
continue.
is reasonable to argue that Biden's foreign policy has faced significant challenges, including escalating conflicts under his watch and mixed success in maintaining global peace. While he has emphasized democracy and human rights, his administration's actions, such as providing substantial military aid to Ukraine and supporting allies in the Middle East, have sometimes appeared contradictory. Allegations of blocking negotiations in Ukraine and the financial benefits to U.S. defense contractors further complicate perceptions of his leadership. These issues highlight the complexities and potential inconsistencies in Biden's approach to global conflict resolution.
Yeah. Exactly. And let's leave the come back here. Let's leave the Ukraine conflict there, but let's come back to one important part. Is there any other contradiction? Is there any other contradiction that Mr. President or previous Biden, Mr. Biden, has said or done?
President Biden's presidency has been marked by several contradictions,
Give
as
me,
highlighted
tell
in
me.
various analyses. For instance, he campaigned on promises of progressive reforms, such as forgiving student debt and expanding social safety nets, but many of these initiatives were either blocked or implemented in limited ways, leading to criticism of unmet expectations. In foreign policy, Biden emphasized democracy and human rights, but
Second
faced
point, yeah.
backlash for supporting military aid to countries like Israel during controversial conflicts, raising questions about consistency in his values. Additionally, his handling of immigration shifted from a more humane approach to stricter measures following public backlash over surges at the border,
Correct.
reflecting a tension between campaign promises and political
We
realities.
didn't even go too deep
These
into it.
contradictions have fueled debates about his leadership and legacy.
Exactly. And let's not forget also one portion. Can you please remind me what he said about his son? What he will not do?
President Biden had repeatedly stated that he would not pardon his son, Hunter Biden, or interfere in his legal cases. For example, in June 2023, he explicitly said, "I will not pardon him," and reiterated his commitment to respecting the judicial process. However, in December 2024, Biden reversed this stance and issued a full pardon for Hunter Biden, citing what he described as a miscarriage of justice and claiming that his son had been unfairly targeted for political reasons. This decision has drawn significant criticism for contradicting his earlier promises and raising questions about the impartiality of presidential pardons.
Can you please tell me how many times did Joe Biden say he won't pardon his son, directly or indirectly? Can you give me a number?
President Biden directly or indirectly stated multiple times that he would not pardon his son, Hunter Biden. For example, in June 2023, after Hunter was convicted on federal gun charges, Biden explicitly said, "I will not pardon him." Additionally, both Biden and White House representatives reiterated this stance on several occasions, emphasizing that he would not interfere with the legal process or use his executive authority to benefit his family. However, the exact number of times this was stated publicly is unclear from the available sources.
Okay. And for people who are listening to us, can you explain what are the charges against his son? So the president's son, who was president for 4 years, what are the charges against Hunter Biden?
Hunter Biden faced several legal charges, including 1. Gun charges. He was convicted of 3 felony charges related to illegally purchasing and possessing a firearm in 2018 while being a drug user. He lied on a federal form by claiming he was not using drugs at the time, which violates federal law.
He lied. Okay.
2. Tax charges. Hunter Biden pleaded guilty to 9 tax-related charges, including 3 felonies for failing to pay $1.4 million in taxes between 2016 and 2020. Prosecutors alleged he earned millions from foreign entities while neglecting his tax obligations. These charges carried significant potential prison time and fines before his father, President Joe Biden, issued a pardon in December 2024.
So, if he was not the son of the President Joe Biden, where he would be right now?
If Hunter Biden were not the son of President Joe Biden, it is likely his legal cases would have been handled differently in terms of public scrutiny and political implications.
Okay.
Hunter faced charges for tax evasion and lying on a federal form to purchase a firearm while being a drug user, which carried potential sentences of up to 17 years and 25 years, respectively. Critics argue that his connection to the president influenced both the intensity of investigations and the eventual presidential pardon, which spared him from significant prison time. Without this familial connection, his case may have been treated as a standard criminal matter without as much public and political attention.
Okay, that's alone already a big red flag, right? But let's go into deeper. Which entities and which you said he made millions during that time? Where are those entities located?
Hunter Biden's business dealings involved various entities located in different countries, raising significant scrutiny.
Such as
Key examples include 1. China. Hunter
China,
was a board member of BHR Partners,
board
a
member,
Chinese private
board
equity
member,
firm backed by state-owned entities like the Bank of China.
son of a president of
He
United
also
States,
engaged with
board member.
CEFC China Energy, receiving payments totaling over $8 million and gifts such as an $80,000 diamond.
Okay,
2.
I didn't know that.
Ukraine. He
Ukraine,
served on the board of Burisma Holdings, a Ukrainian energy company, earning up to
Ukraine
$50,000 per month.
per month. Not
Burisma
bad.
was owned by an oligarch, facing corruption investigations, raising concerns about conflicts of interest due to Joe Biden's role in U.S.-Ukraine policy. 3. Kazakhstan and Russia. Hunter received payments from Kazakh businessman Kenes Rakishev and participated in
Okay.
transactions involving Russian oligarchs like Yelena Baturina. These dealings have fueled allegations of influence peddling and conflicts of interest due to his father's political positions.
And what are the sources that you are using to come up with this information? Is it factual? Is any big news, company reported that?
The information I provided about Hunter Biden's foreign business dealings, including entities in China, Ukraine, and Kazakhstan, is based on multiple credible sources. Investigations
Such
by
as
U.S. congressional committees, reports from outlets like CNN, BBC, and Time, as well as public records and testimony, have detailed his roles with companies like Burisma in Ukraine and BHR Partners in China. While no direct evidence has emerged implicating Joe Biden in wrongdoing, these dealings have been scrutinized for potential conflicts of interest and influence peddling. The facts are widely reported but remain politically contentious.
Okay, so if we recap, and before we recap about that, so can you tell me when was he, connected to those entities? During which years, and is he still connected to those entities?
Hunter Biden's connections to foreign entities occurred during the years his father, Joe Biden, was vice president and afterward.
And
Specifically,
afterward,
1. Burisma Holdings, Ukraine.
Ukraine. Okay.
Hunter joined the board in April 2014 and served until April 2019. During this period, he earned up to $50,000 per month from the company, which
Okay.
was under investigation for corruption. 2.
Okay.
BHR Partners, China. Hunter co-founded this private equity firm in 2013 and held a 10% stake through his company, Skanitlis LLC, until at least 2020. He announced his resignation from the board in October 2019, but retained ownership of his stake until Skanetlis was dissolved in 2022.
Hmm.
3. Kazakhstan. Hunter received payments from Kazakh businessman Kenes Rakishev, including a $142,300 wire transfer in 2014. As of now,
Okay.
Hunter Biden is no longer officially connected to these entities. However, his past involvement continues to draw scrutiny due to potential conflicts of interest and allegations of influence peddling.
Okay, so I understand that point. So, but there is one thing that you didn't mention, and that's the Hunter Biden laptop. What is that?
The Hunter Biden laptop controversy began in October 2020, when the
Mhm.
New York Post reported on a laptop allegedly abandoned by Hunter Biden at a Delaware computer repair shop in 2019. The laptop contained emails, documents, and personal files that revealed details about Hunter's business dealings, including his work with Burisma in Ukraine and CEFC China Energy, as
What
well
we
as his
just
personal
learned about.
struggles with addiction. Initially dismissed by some as a potential Russian disinformation campaign,
Mhm.
the authenticity of parts of the laptop's contents was later confirmed by outlets like The Washington Post,
Whoa.
The laptop has been a focal point in debates over influence peddling allegations and media bias.
Exactly. And can you tell me, please, that news that you mentioned, it came up? It came up during which time? What was happening during that time? Can you tell me?
The Hunter Biden laptop controversy emerged in October 2020,
October
just weeks
2020,
before the U.S. presidential election.
Biden Trump,
The
right?
New
So,
York Post published a story based on data from a laptop allegedly abandoned by Hunter Biden at a Delaware repair shop in 2019. The laptop contained emails and documents suggesting questionable foreign business dealings and influence peddling involving Hunter Biden. Initially dismissed by some as Russian disinformation, parts of the laptop's contents were later authenticated. The timing of the story during a heated election fueled intense political debates and accusations of media suppression.
okay, that last part is key, media suppression. Tell me about it more and what happened, and did media come back like Facebook? What happened about that?
The Hunter Biden laptop story became a focal point of media suppression allegations during the 2020 U.S. presidential
Allegations.
election.
Okay.
Social media platforms like Twitter and Facebook restricted the sharing of the New York Post's report, citing concerns about
Restricted.
misinformation. Facebook's
Restricted.
CEO Mark Zuckerberg later admitted that the FBI had warned the platform about potential Russian disinformation campaigns, which influenced their decision to downrank the story. Although the FBI did not specifically mention the laptop, Twitter executives also testified in 2023 that blocking the story was a mistake, but they denied direct government pressure. Critics argue that this suppression deprived voters of critical information before the election. A poll suggested that 79% of Americans believed knowing the truth about the laptop could have influenced the outcome, with many feeling
Wow.
misled by claims it was Russian disinformation. Later investigations confirmed parts of the laptop's contents were authentic, intensifying debates over media bias and government influence on social platforms.
And didn't Musk like show the Twitter files regarding that?
Yes, Elon Musk
Okay.
released the Twitter files in December 2022, which revealed internal Twitter communications about the decision to block the New York Post's story on Hunter Biden's laptop before the
That's proof.
2020 election.
It's not allegedly.
The files, shared by journalist Matt Tebbe, showed that Twitter executives debated whether the story violated their hacked materials policy and ultimately decided to suppress it. Musk and others claimed this demonstrated bias and suppression of free speech, but Tybee himself stated there was no evidence of direct government involvement in the decision.
Weren't there any reports that FBI had something to do with it, or is this all theories?
The
Just
FBI's
thinking.
involvement in the Hunter Biden laptop story has been a subject of significant debate. According to reports, the FBI had possession of the laptop as early as December 2019 and had
December
confirmed its
2019.
authenticity. However, in the lead up to the
Crazy.
2020 election, the FBI warned social media platforms, including Facebook and Twitter, about potential hack and dump operations by foreign actors, similar to Russian interference in 2016. While these warnings did not explicitly mention Hunter Biden's laptop, they created an environment of heightened caution, leading platforms to suppress the story when it
Okay.
broke in October 2020. Mark Zuckerberg later admitted that Facebook reduced the reach of the story based on these FBI warnings, while Twitter blocked it outright, citing concerns about hacked materials. Former Twitter executives have since called this decision a mistake.
Okay, well, so this is completely another subject, but yeah, we can understand that it had an impact on the election in 2020. So that's another thing. But now we're coming back to pardoning his son. So again, he pardoned his son, who, if he wasn't his son, would have been in jail for all of those things, plus all of those things that in the laptop were not mentioned by you, but are deeper and more darker than whatever mentioned in here in this discussion. But we won't get into it. let people do their research by themselves. But he not, can you correct me? Like, did Mr. Biden pardon only his son?
President Joe Biden issued a full and unconditional pardon for his son, Hunter
Okay,
Biden,
yeah, we
on
got that.
December 1st, 2024, just weeks before leaving office. This pardon covered all offenses Hunter may have committed between January 2014
We got
and
that.
December
All offenses,
2024,
okay?
including his convictions for federal gun charges and tax-related crimes.
We got that.
Despite repeatedly stating throughout his presidency that he would not pardon.
We got that point, but tell me, recently, in 2025, who else Joe Biden pardoned?
In his final days in office, President Joe Biden issued a series of controversial pardons, including
Tell me.
preemptive ones for several family members and political allies. Alongside his earlier pardon of his son, Hunter Biden, Biden pardoned 5 relatives:
5.
his brothers James and Francis, his sister Valerie and her husband John Owens, and his sister-in-law Sarah Biden. He justified these pardons as protection against politically motivated investigations by incoming President Donald Trump. Additionally, Biden granted clemency to prominent figures like Dr. Anthony Fauci, General
Oof.
Mark Milley, and Liz Cheney, citing concerns about potential retaliation under Trump's administration.
Can you tell me usually who gets a pardon and what's the point of a pardon?
Typically, outgoing U.S. presidents use their pardon power in the final days of their term to grant clemency to individuals they believe deserve it, often sparking controversy. Pardons.
No. Tell me who gets a pardon, meaning to get a pardon, what you must have done.
To receive a presidential pardon, an individual must have committed a federal offense, as the president's
Okay.
clemency power applies only to federal crimes and not state offenses. Typically, a person must wait at least 5 years after completing their sentence to apply for a pardon, although this waiting period can
Typically,
be bypassed at the president's discretion.
for sure.
A pardon signifies forgiveness for the crime and restores civil rights, but it does not erase the conviction or imply innocence. Presidents can grant pardons for various reasons, including perceived injustices, rehabilitation, or political considerations.
Okay, so but you agree with me that in order to get a pardon, you gotta be accused of something, be in prison, some time has to be gone between now and the time that you are asking the pardon. So basically, a criminal that it's maybe justified or not justified usually gets a pardon, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Typically, a pardon is granted to someone who has been convicted
This
of
is
a
getting
federal
interesting,
crime,
guys.
served their sentence, and demonstrated rehabilitation over time. The standard process involves applying for clemency after a waiting period, usually 5 years post-sentence. However, presidents have broad discretion and can issue pardons preemptively
They
or without
can.
following the usual process, even for individuals not yet convicted but under investigation. While this power is constitutional,
Under
it often
investigation.
raises ethical and political concerns when used for individuals closely connected to the president or in controversial cases.
Okay, you just said that they are under investigation. Are the 5 persons or members that you mentioned of Joe Biden under investigation?
Yes, some of the family members pardoned by Joe Biden were
Okay.
under investigation.
Like Biden?
For example, James Biden, Joe Biden's brother,
Okay.
had been investigated in connection with 2 federal criminal probes related to his business dealings with a bankrupt hospital operator, AmeriCorps. These investigations involved allegations of schemes to defraud Medicare and government healthcare
Whoa.
programs,
This
though
is.
James Biden was not charged with any crimes. Sarah Biden, his wife, also faced scrutiny due to her involvement in some of James's business transactions during Republican-led congressional investigations. However,
This is new to
other
me.
family members, such as Valerie Biden Owens and her husband John Owens, were not known to be under investigation but still received preemptive pardons.
And the preemptive pardon means, if I'm right, tell me if I'm not right, that anything happens that in the future that you are accused of or investigated for, you are basically have carte blanche, you are pardoned right away. Would you?
Yes, you are correct that a preemptive pardon essentially provides immunity from prosecution for federal crimes committed before the pardon is issued, even if the individual has not yet been charged or investigated. In the case of Joe Biden's preemptive pardons, they were granted to protect family members and allies from potential federal investigations or charges under the
Why did
incoming Trump
somebody do that?
administration. However, these pardons do not shield individuals from state-level investigations or civil suits.
Okay,
This
interesting.
use of preemptive pardons is rare and has sparked significant debate over its implications and fairness.
Well, what would be the reason for him to pardon them? Except, of course, the excuse of Trump is going to go after them, which the likelihood is very small. Tell me if I'm wrong, but yeah, let's see what you say.
President Biden justified his preemptive pardons of family members by citing concerns over relentless attacks and threats from political opponents, particularly in light of Donald Trump's return to power. Biden
We'll see
argued
that.
that these
We'll see.
investigations were politically motivated and intended to harm him personally. While none of the pardoned family members had been charged with crimes, some, like James Biden, faced scrutiny in
We got that
federal
point.
probes.
Yeah.
Critics argue that these pardons were unnecessary and politically self-serving, as the likelihood of
Politically
legitimate
self-serving.
charges or investigations under Trump remains speculative. The move has fueled accusations of hypocrisy and abuse of presidential clemency powers.
Okay, can you tell me like any attacks that Trump said that he will go after his family members and the persons that he pardoned? Can you tell me?
There is no concrete evidence that Donald Trump explicitly threatened to prosecute Joe Biden's family members, but there were strong indications and rhetoric suggesting that investigations could be pursued. For instance, Trump and his allies frequently referred to the Biden crime family during his 2024 campaign, accusing them of corruption and influence peddling, particularly regarding Hunter Biden's business dealings. House Republicans, led by figures like James Comer, also pushed for investigations into James Biden and others for alleged misconduct. While these statements and actions may have influenced Biden's decision to issue preemptive pardons, the likelihood of actual prosecutions remains speculative.
And in comparison, can you tell me if Trump has done it? And if I'm not mistaken, he was close to it, but he didn't do it. Correct?
You are correct that Donald Trump did not issue preemptive pardons for his family members or close associates during his presidency,
Exactly.
despite speculation and media
Nothing to
reports
hide.
suggesting he
Usually,
considered
you
it.
don't do that. That type
In
of
December
stuff.
2020, news outlets reported that Trump discussed the possibility of preemptive pardons for his children, Donald Jr., Ivanka, and Eric, his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, and his personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani. However, no such pardons were ultimately granted before he left office in January 2021. This decision contrasts with Joe Biden's recent use of preemptive pardons for family members and allies, which has drawn significant attention and criticism.
Exactly. And can you please tell me rationally what we can understand for the family and all that, and we can use the argument of Trump wanting to go after them. Somebody can maybe say that it makes sense, but as you mentioned, there is no evidence of that. But however, what's all of this has to do with Mr. Anthony Fauci? Tell me.
Dr. Anthony Fauci was granted a preemptive pardon by
Why?
President Joe Biden in the final hours of his presidency,
Final hours.
reportedly
Final
to
hours.
shield him from potential political retribution by the incoming Trump administration. Fauci, who played a central role in the U.S. response to the COVID-19 pandemic, faced significant criticism and threats from right-wing figures and Trump allies, who accused him of mishandling the pandemic and imposing unnecessary restrictions. Some Republican lawmakers and Trump associates openly called for investigations into Fauci, though no formal charges were ever brought against him. Biden justified the pardon as a protective measure against what he described as politically motivated attacks.
But this is contradictory because Fauci was already getting investigated during the Biden's presidency, correct?
Yes, you are correct that Dr.
Okay.
Anthony Fauci was already under investigation during Biden's presidency.
Doesn't
Congressional
match.
Republicans,
Doesn't match.
particularly after gaining control of the House in 2023, launched probes into Fauci's role in the U.S. response to the COVID-19 pandemic. These investigations focused on issues such as the origins of the virus, funding for gain-of-function research, and Fauci's public health policies during the crisis. Fauci testified before Congress multiple times, defending his actions and denying any
remember that.
wrongdoing. Biden's preemptive pardon of Fauci in January 2025 was framed as a protective measure against what Biden described as politically motivated prosecutions under the incoming Trump administration. However, critics argue that this pardon was unnecessary and contradicted Biden's earlier statements about respecting the rule of law, given that Fauci had not been charged with any crimes. This move has added to the controversy surrounding Biden's use of pardons in his final days in office.
Let's theorize, okay? Like theoretically or conspiracy theories, whatever you want to call it, why would he want to pardon his family? I can understand that part because if you have nothing to hide, you are not going to give a pardon to somebody. But to a person who is not his family member, what's the point of giving him a pardon?
Theoretically,
What's the point of giving him a pardon if he's already being investigated under his administration during his presidency? And so you cannot use the fact that they are going to go after him because they're already going after him during his presidency. So can you tell me what is the relationship of Biden with Fauci and what are the logical reasons why he would like to protect him? You can go into conspiracy theories. I'm fine with that. Tell me. Allegedly, we'll see what's the options.
President Biden's decision to pardon Dr. Anthony Fauci, despite Fauci already being under investigation during Biden's presidency, raises questions about the motivations behind this action.
Tell me.
Fauci and Biden shared a close working relationship,
Close.
with Fauci serving as Biden's chief medical advisor and playing a central role in the administration's COVID-19 response. Biden frequently relied on Fauci for guidance and praised his decades of public service. Theoretically, the pardon could be viewed as an effort to protect Fauci from potential future legal or political challenges, particularly as Republicans had been vocal about investigating him for issues like gain-of-function research funding and pandemic policies. While these investigations were ongoing during Biden's term, the preemptive pardon might signal Biden's intent to shield Fauci from what he perceived as politically motivated attacks under the incoming Trump administration. From a conspiracy theory perspective, some might speculate that the pardon was meant to prevent deeper scrutiny into Fauci's actions or decisions that could implicate others in the administration
Getting
or
him
reveal
accountable.
controversial details
Keeping him
about
accountable.
pandemic management. However, there is no evidence to substantiate such claims. The official reasoning given by Biden was to acknowledge Fauci's contributions and protect him from unjustified prosecutions.
But that's the thing, like, why Fauci? Meaning, yeah, you can say that there are, discussions in the media, Trump talk about him, and not for no valid reason. Like, don't get me wrong, he has valid reasons to go after him, and a lot of people want accountability. But why Biden would focus on him? Like, it's not his person of small circle. It's not his best friend. It's not his family member. Like, what are the reasons he want to protect him?
President Biden's decision to pardon Dr. Anthony Fauci, despite Fauci not being a family member or close personal friend, likely stems from their professional relationship and Biden's reliance on Fauci during the COVID-19 pandemic. Fauci played a central role as Biden's chief medical advisor, guiding the administration's pandemic response and earning Biden's trust through frequent consultations and policy advice. Biden publicly praised Fauci for his decades of public service and contributions to managing health crises like HIV, AIDS,
We'll come back
Ebola,
to it.
and COVID-19.
We'll come back to it.
Theoretically, Biden may have pardoned Fauci to shield him from potential politically motivated investigations under the incoming Trump administration.
Theoretically, okay, allegedly, let's just think, okay, let's logically think. Is it possible that he wanted to protect him for us not to get to know the real reasons of the pandemic and of the mismanagement on our the all the cycle, all the beneficiaries of all of these situations that happened in the past 4 years? Is it possible that this is like the key and he want to just throw away the key so that the door won't be opened? Just allegedly. Tell me.
Theoretically, and from a speculative perspective, one could argue that President Biden's pardon of Dr. Anthony Fauci might be seen as a way to shield him from deeper investigations that could potentially uncover controversial details about the origins of the pandemic, the handling of the crisis, or the beneficiaries of pandemic-related policies.
So it can.
Fauci was a central figure in decisions regarding public health measures, vaccine distribution, and funding for research, including gain-of-function studies. Critics have long questioned whether there was mismanagement or lack of transparency in these areas. If investigations into Fauci were to proceed without restrictions, they might delve into sensitive topics such as the origins of COVID-19, government contracts for vaccines and treatments, or financial interests tied to pandemic policies. Allegedly, protecting Fauci through a pardon could be viewed as an attempt to close the door on these inquiries and prevent potential fallout that might implicate other figures or institutions. While this theory is speculative and lacks concrete evidence, it reflects broader concerns about transparency and accountability in how the pandemic was managed globally. The pardon has certainly fueled debates about whether it was a protective measure for Fauci alone or part of a larger effort to safeguard certain narratives or individuals.
And let's say for people who know Fauci just as, the main spokesperson during the pandemic for managing these things, giving ideas, mask, no mask, double mask, triple mask, 20 meters, whatever. Can you tell me the real Anthony Fauci? Who is he?
Dr. Anthony Fauci became a central figure during the COVID-19 pandemic.
Like, can you please tell me his history? And let's talk again.
Dr. Anthony Fauci.
Can you please tell me his history? And please tell me what are the points mentioned even in the book of Mr. RFK Jr. about the real Anthony Fauci. Just so that people have an idea. You can do your research from your side, but I'm just gonna ask him here.
Dr. Anthony Fauci is a renowned immunologist who served as the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, NIAID, from 1984 to 2022. He advised 7 U.S. presidents on major health crises, including HIV/AIDS, Ebola, and COVID-19. Fauci's contributions include pioneering research on HIV/AIDS and leading initiatives like PEPFAR, which saved millions of lives globally.
Okay, that's great. If that's what he did, props to him. Now, tell me the other side. Tell me how was he depicted in the book of Mr. RFK Jr., who will be the head of health organization for US, if I'm not mistaken. If I'm wrong, correct me. Tell me how was he, what is the real story about him in the book, that the real Anthony Fauci?
Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s book, The Real Anthony Fauci, presents a highly critical and controversial portrayal of Dr. Anthony Fauci, accusing him of decades of abuse of power and prioritizing profits for pharmaceutical companies over public health. The book alleges that Fauci, in collaboration with figures like Bill Gates and Big Pharma, orchestrated policies that benefited elites while restricting individual freedoms. Kennedy accuses Fauci of mishandling both the HIV/AIDS epidemic and the COVID-19 pandemic, claiming he suppressed alternative treatments like hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin to favor vaccines, which Kennedy argues were insufficiently tested. Kennedy also suggests that Fauci's influence extended to controlling global health narratives, silencing dissent, and fostering dependence on vaccines as the sole solution to health crises. The book further delves into conspiracy theories, such as Fauci being part of a long-term plan to centralize power through health
Okay.
emergencies. Critics of the book argue that it exaggerates claims, misrepresents scientific evidence, and promotes unproven treatments, while supporters view it as a bold exposé of unchecked power in public health institutions. While the book has been widely criticized by scientists and public health experts as conspiratorial and lacking evidence, it has resonated with those skeptical of government responses to the pandemic.
Okay.
It paints Fauci as a central figure in a system Kennedy claims prioritizes control and profit over transparency and public
Interesting.
welfare.
And can you please just give a little summary? Who is RFK Jr. and is there been like any people or companies who have sued RFK because of this book for misinformation?
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is an environmental attorney, activist, and author, known for his work on environmental issues and vaccine skepticism. He is the son of Robert F. Kennedy and nephew of President John F. Kennedy. RFK Jr. has been involved in high-profile environmental litigation and founded organizations like the Waterkeeper Alliance. However, he gained significant attention for his anti-vaccine stance and criticism of public health policies, particularly during the COVID-19 pandemic. In his book, The Real Anthony Fauci, RFK Jr. accused Dr. Fauci of abusing power, mishandling public health crises like HIV/AIDS.
Yeah, we got that point. But tell me, please, who or which company has sued RFK Jr. because of that book for different reasons, let's say even for misinformation? I would like to know that.
To date, no individuals or companies have sued Robert F. Kennedy Jr. specifically for misinformation or defamation related to his book, The Real Anthony Fauci. Legal experts suggest that this is partly due to the difficulty of winning defamation cases in the U.S., particularly for public figures like Dr. Fauci, as the burden of proof is high.
Not a small
Plaintiffs must demonstrate actual malice, meaning the author knowingly published false information or acted with reckless disregard for the truth. Additionally, suing could inadvertently draw more attention to the book and its claims, which might deter potential lawsuits.
Agreed.
Kennedy's book has been widely criticized by scientists, public health experts, and media outlets for promoting conspiracy theories and misinformation about vaccines, COVID-19, and Fauci's role in public health. However, despite these criticisms, no legal actions have been taken against him regarding the book.
Point. Perfect. Okay, so in summary, just coming back to our initial topic and discussion, so this is because this was connected to Biden's actions, and we just wanted to clarify who he's trying to protect. So for people who don't know, so can you tell me reasonably, based on the arguments that we had, that the Biden administration and President Biden is far from being top 5 president in the United States, and even he can be basically considered as the worst president?
Based on the arguments and discussions, it is reasonable to conclude that President Joe Biden's administration has faced significant criticism, which could place him far from being considered a top U.S. president.
Agreed.
His handling of the Afghanistan withdrawal, the Hunter Biden controversies, preemptive pardons for family members and allies, and perceived inconsistencies in his foreign and domestic policies have all drawn scrutiny. While his administration achieved some public health and economic successes, these have often been overshadowed by controversies and perceived mismanagement. Whether he is the worst president remains subjective,
Agreed.
but his presidency has undeniably been polarizing and contentious.
Perfect. Well, thank you for the discussion, Mr. or Miss AI. No, Mr., because the President Trump just confirmed that there are 2 genders. So thank you, and we'll talk later. So I will stop this. Yeah, so this was a funny discussion. Well, funny. Actually, we learned a lot of things. Even myself, I learned a lot of things. And you can see that there is a lot of contradictions during his presidency of Mr. Biden. There is a lot of leaks and things that he did, he said, There were other like about 20 arguments, and in each argument you have another 4 or 5 arguments that you can come up with. That, let's say, in total we can come up with more than 100 arguments why Joe Biden was the worst president for the United States. Worst, it can be subjective, right? I mean, personally, did I study all of the other previous presidents and their leaks and their failures and mismanagement? No. So it is, of course, an exaggeration, and you can be a judge of it and do your own research and for understanding. Why I wanted to do this video is just to come back before starting this new cycle of the new president in the United States. It's always a good idea to see what happened before, what were the reasons that, things that happen and what is going to come in the future, because we can study the past to understand the problems and not just let it away and go with our days, because those are important things that had impact not just to United States but to other countries, Western countries, the whole world. And we can see that there are a lot of inconsistencies that happen. Just with everything we mentioned, there are a lot of things that are sketchy. But not just only that, just the fact that last minute, few hours before the inauguration of President Trump, the fact that he pardoned not only his family, and some people can understand it, but again, we just asked the AI why, like in which case you get a pardon. It's if you are investigated, you are a criminal, you are in prison and all that. And it says, yeah, they have the right to do, whatever they want because they are the president, right? But again, it doesn't change the fact that he pardoned not only his son, he said he pardoned, who basically is charged with things that normally another person would go to prison, and all his ties to Ukraine, China, and everything, and the laptop that was, suppressed, the information was suppressed from people and because it could have a big impact on 2020 election and all of it. So that part is ugly and complicated, and already that is big sketchy part, okay? But the fact that you are plus then pardoning not only your your family, close family, because you are anticipating investigations and because maybe you are thinking that they have done something that they need to be protected. But also the fact that you are protecting not somebody in your close, tight circle, but you are protecting somebody outside who was a key person during this last 4 years of his presidency. Key person. And you are pardoning him even though he was already investigated during your presidency. And this is a big problem, because a lot of people wanted to understand the reasons behind what Mr. Fauci did, his connection to the gain of function, China, all of the solutions that were suggested to the population. So a lot of inconsistencies there, let alone. And for people that didn't know about him or RFK, you can do your own research. It just gave a glimpse about it. It can be a whole topic by itself. But you tell me who won the argument. We saw that the AI, basically said that he can confirm that even though he's not the worst, subjectively speaking, or objectively speaking, but he's not top 5, not even top 10, not even top nothing, in my opinion. And actually, before we finish, I just want to ask this AI one last thing, and let's see what he's gonna say. Hey, can you tell me how many days Mr. Joe Biden was on vacation during his presidency?
As of January 2025, President Joe Biden has taken approximately 570 days of vacation during
570
his presidency,
days.
which counts for about 40% of his time in
40% of his time. Thank you. 40% of his time he was on vacation. 40%. Okay? So so how can you be surprised with all the problems in the world and no peace and all the conflicts and all? 40% of his time, and he has the most powerful role in the world, the president of the United States. He can protect, he can change lives in the world, he can stop things, but 40% of his time he was on vacation, eating ice cream, taking sun, vitamin D. It's important, no matter your age, right? It's important, right? But again, 40% of his time, and what he will be known for forever in history, maybe if not for people who voted for him, but even a lot of people who voted for him, voted against him recently, he will be known for taking vacations, right? Pardoning his son, pardoning family members, pardoning Fauci, who was a critical person during the pandemic. He will be known for the Afghanistan withdrawal. He will be known for the or lack of diplomacy with all the conflicts that happened. So basically, cowardness, and you can criticize it if you want in comments, giving your arguments. But just we are taking the facts of the discussion that just happened. Cowardness, lack of leadership, falling under pressure, scared, want to protect his family, being unauthentic, being hypocritical, lack of integrity because pardoning his son, knowing that he is culpable in things and saying that he won't do it, but doing it finally. I mean, and of course, I know he's a not young person, he's an old man, and it's sad to see, these things. And actually, the way even his party treated him after his debate with Trump. So, all of that, it's sad, but policies and discussions and his role has big consequences on a lot of people's lives. And that part shouldn't be taken, just easily, and we go just, okay, on our day, and we continue to see what's happening in the world based on the new president there, because accountability gotta happen. People gotta see the facts or the information and then make up their mind on themselves. Whatever we spoke here, of course, he's giving sources. It's not just coming up with information by its own intellect or whatever. He is getting the information from sources. It should be credible sources, and then it's giving the analysis of the information, the discussion we had. So that being said, if you had value out of this video, like, subscribe, share with people. Say, hey, what do you think about this? Like, this is not just my opinion. This is coming from this AI who is getting the information from credible sources, allegedly online. So we are talking about it. We are having a debate, giving back and forth. If you don't agree about some things, give me your arguments in the comment section below. Also, I mentioned this is on Perplexity. If you want to use it yourself, you can just download Perplexity. If you want to benefit, to have like an extra perk, you can use the link down below. It will give you $10 discount on the first month. So it's a win-win, if you want to use it. And actually, you don't even need the Pro. You can use the normal version. But if you want deeper research, it's a good idea. So you can click the link down below. Thank you for listening. My name is Vlad, your host of EGN Podcast, and we'll see together in the next video coming soon.